Welcome, my beautiful witches, to this episode, our podcast of Successful Witches, where we are all about indie romance and we are obsessed with spice, with smut, with happily ever afters. I have the most beautiful guest joining us today on the podcast to welcome on in S.E Wendel, who is a fantasy author writing the most beautiful worlds, characters, and love stories you will ever have the privilege to dive on into. So welcome and thank you for joining us on the podcast today, lovely. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. That was so sweet. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness.
You are so welcome. And we have been kind of hanging out in each other's DMs for a while in anticipation of this episode. So it feels absolutely delicious to finally get a chance to come and to chat and to just talk about all things fantasy romance, romantasy. It's just,
I love talking shop.
makes
Especially
my
with your
heart
wonderful
so
New Zealand
happy.
accent. I love it so much. So much better than my nasally California accent.
It's like the beauty of indie romance in itself is that we literally are all doing this from all different parts of the world, and then we just like blend it with the magic of podcasting and it becomes this even more exciting thing where we're basically able to just come together and nerd out on all the things we love, to not only write about ourselves but to read about and to enjoy and just to immerse ourselves in the world of. And I just absolutely cannot wait to, kind of just get a little bit of a feel for your entry into, or how you got started in the indie romance author world, your journey with it. If you want to share a little bit as we get started, because everyone has got such a fascinating story. So I am dying to know personally.
Yeah. Well, I felt like it started off kind of like a lot of people did, where I feel like everyone's mom had some sort of bodice ripper on their nightstand. Like everyone's mom had one. Maybe she didn't necessarily like it all the time, but like she had one squirreled away somewhere. And my mom had more than a few squirreled away, and they weren't squirreled away, they were out and about. So a lot of like OG classic Nora Roberts, Julia Quinn. So like I was reading Bridgerton before it was a Netflix series.
Oh.
Like this is problematic, even before it was a Netflix series. um and so I started that way, and I've always loved romance. That I gravitated towards that as a teen. Even reading like YA as a teenager, I was just like, okay, this is all great, awesome, but like love story. Like I love the magic, I love the fantasy. Give me the dragons, the swords, love it, but also give me that love plot. It can be a second subplot, but like give me the romance.
Gotta have that part. And
Have it.
I don't know about you, but for me, it's always been the happily ever after version of the romance as well. I am like, I can occasionally dabble in ones that if the rest of the story is good enough, but it kind of, there's a little part of me that dies every time I read a story that it's not a happily ever after.
And especially series where maybe like there's a main couple, but it takes them a couple books to get together. Like I need to know that ahead of time so that I can like chug on through, power through, because like I am not built for the like mid 2000s drama of it takes us 8 seasons to get together. Like I don't have a constitution for that. I need instant gratification.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I sort of started in the like historical romance, that sort of thing was my jam reading. I've always loved fantasy. And then I scoodled on off to college. I didn't really have time to read anything for myself because as an English major, your eyeballs are just taking like your eyeballs are just reading all that good classical literature. And then finally I was in grad school and I was just honestly I was getting my master's in creative writing, and you do a lot of reading in that, reading other very excellent works of literature. However, most of them are so depressing.
Yeah.
So depressing. Everyone got
happily ever after.
No. Oh God, no. Oh no.
Tortured soul.
These stories usually take place over like a day. They're not like a whole you know, short stories, they're sagas, and it's so depressing, and it's just about the human condition, and it's just not always what you want. And so I got back into reading romance. I needed something nice. I needed some fluff.
Give me.
I'm so tired of reading about how the desert is a metaphor for isolation and loneliness. I hate the desert. Oh, I hate it so much. And you know, I think lit fiction definitely has a time and a place. There's many good authors, but god damn is it depressing most of the time. So I definitely wanted fluff, and I kind of went back to where I had started, which was historical romance. That felt very familiar. I dabbled in that. I got into like Scottish time travel because who doesn't? And then that sort of like I was reading like Susanna Kersley, who was mixing in like different types of like magic and those sorts of things, and then got into, you know, fantasy romance. So I was like, oh wait,
Yeah. Oh,
yes, it's clicking. Yes. Oh my goodness. That always like when I write fantasy, and then it's always had romance in it, and then I just sort of realized, somewhat late, I would honestly say, that like, oh, you can put like kissing in this and it's better. Like battles are great and all, but like what if they kissed? Like, oh, like battles and tension, that's you know, that it drives up the drama and the tension, but like what if we had sexual tension?
yeah.
So much better, so
Yeah.
much more interesting. Oh,
We've got
and then
sword play and foreplay. Like this is
I
just
love that. Swordplay and foreplay. I love it.
the
Oh
new
god.
new blurb for every romantasy
I love it.
that
I
comes
love
out.
it. Romantasy, swordplay, and foreplay. Oh man, you should copyright that. That is so good. I love it.
Like, trademark it.
Yes. Oh, I mean, it's great. I love that. Um, so then I kind of got into like G.A. Aiken and her dragon shifter fantasy romance, and it was just a downward spiral from there. And I think I eventually made my way. I found Ruby Dixon's dragon books. I knew she had written IPB, and I was just like, no, I can't. Like, there's a line. It's too weird. But then her dragon books were so good, and I was just so hooked on her writing style. And I love her for, I think she's one of those people who just really transcends between she's a good writer, like the prose she writes is excellent, and she writes entertaining books. And she puts out one a month. Like it boggles my mind.
Yeah.
Um, it's just insanity. And um, but then she only had a few of the dragon books out at the time, and I was like, I want more. The first IPB, and I was like, oh no, she got me. And my next Amazon order was like all the ones out yet, and I think there were like 14 out at the time. Like, now,
Like
take your credit card. Yep,
straight down the rabbit hole.
straight down. So then it was alien romance, and then of course, in my opinion, alien romance is the slippery slope into monster romance.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're really alien romance in a lot of ways now is just monster romance in space.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just take your pick.
It's like how paranormal romance is kind of that gateway drug to
Yeah,
monster romance for so many people as well,
100%.
right? Like it just opens the door and says, "Come on in." Like,
Yep. Oh, you like a vampire? Okay, well then what about an elf? Okay, then well what about like a merman? And it
yeah,
just keeps upping the ante.
yeah.
And just like,
We
well,
add in a tail, and then we add in some wings, and
yes. And that's kind of the great part is there's a little bit for everyone. I personally just cannot do insect heroes. That's okay. I like my winged heroes.
yeah, I actually have to admit that I haven't got into like the insecty arachnidy realm yet. I won't say never, but
Right.
for now I've tended to stay more in the, you know, kind of dragony,
Yes.
demonic, you know, like kind of, yeah, we've got wings, we've got tails, we've got fangs, like, you know.
That's usually different enough for me.
Yeah.
Yes. It's the bugs. Like I see it, and then I see a house spider, and I'm like, I don't get it. Oh, no. No.
Oh, I love it. I
Like
love it.
obviously to each their own. Like Tiffany
Yeah.
Roberts is killing it over here. Naomi Lucas is killing it. Like they're doing great.
Yeah,
And you know,
and I would
each their own.
absolutely say that from what I've seen on like Bookstagram and Book Talk, like I'm intrigued. Like I am definitely intrigued to know more because I think it is such a skill to write these kind of inherently monstery characters, whether that is, and we could probably talk about it from the angle of like whether that is purely in like dark romance, right, that you've got somebody who looks normal but is like inside is monstery, or we've got the external monstery thing to deal with, visual aspect to deal with. And it's a skill to write that and make that
Yeah.
someone that you end up enjoying their story and like falling in love with, as much as the other characters in the book too.
Well, no, it's just so fun too because there's so many little niches and like you discover like, oh, I really like this, and oh, there's more out there. Like, oh, I'm gonna read all this author's backlist, and oh, there's more like work stuff, or oh, there's more dragon stuff. Like, oh, I'm gonna go over here. Oh, now there's like what now snakes, and it's just like, hey,
Yeah.
to each their own.
Yeah. And this is like indie romance, right? Has just
Yeah.
opened the accessibility up for not only authors with like the creative ideas to allow that to come out, but also connect with the people who are wanting to read these stories. Like you saying, that the books that your mum had on her shelf were probably like
That was
the
it. Like, yeah.
historical like Regency romance that were kind of pushing the boundary of, I guess, like what was acceptable to include in a book.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Big time. And
Yeah.
as you say, like the kind of scandal, like scandalous.
Oh yeah, like I think there's a one great thing I sort of one of my favorite things I wrote in grad school was I was in a medieval lit class and just talking about like how not only how like medieval lit we kind of grew the genre of fantasy, not just because of Tolkien. We've also got Queen Ursula K. Le Guin. She is amazing. But also just like in my view, a lot of times historical romance is kind of rewriting history if history had treated women better. Like if
Mm,
women had gotten a happily
mm,
ever after rather than an
mm.
unhappy marriage.
Yeah.
And so I think it's fascinating. Like there's a lot going on, and it's certainly pushed the boundaries. And do we read it now, like things that came out in the 80s, and we go, oh wow, that's just it's so vanilla and blah blah. I'm like, yeah, but at the time, like, and
Mm,
especially that it was by women for women, which is why it's always been, trashed on because God forbid women do something for themselves. That's why I've
mm.
always loved it. It's always doing something interesting. And it doesn't have to be for you to be interesting and good. And that's the great thing is authors just have the kind of this free roam to do whatever they want. And now they don't have to have a traditional publisher back them to do it.
Exactly. And so obviously for you, that was your kind of gateway into the exploring what you enjoyed and what you wanted to then bring to life in terms of your own creativity. So what was kind of the I guess like the catalyst or the step for you that actually took it from I'm reading these books, I'm enjoying them, I'm down the rabbit hole of all these different sort of indie romance genres, and then actually to start writing your own?
Mm-hmm. I've been writing since I was pretty little. My poor mother, I would literally dictate to her and she would type up my stories. And I was not, and I'd be like, okay, now read it back to me. I was a very demanding boss, is what I'm saying. Very,
Precocious
yes,
author in training.
yes. It's like, quote, blah, 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 comma, end quote. Now read it back. And, she was so relieved when I learned how to type in fourth grade. She's like, oh my God. Um, so I've always been writing stories, and of course have all the like angsty teen novels when I was a teen. Um, I have a couple more fantasy than romance novels I wrote in college. And then I just think discovering indie romance really kind of showed me this is what you've been wanting to do. Like, this
Mm,
is, you want to write a kissing book. And I was like, oh yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Like read what you want or write what you want to read, you know, and like that can kind of be hard when you are in an academic world and you do have to read all
Mm.
this. And there is definitely like something to be said for reading classical literature. Especially I think if you want to improve your writing, reading really good writing is going to help.
Yeah.
Um, but I think when you surround yourself with stuff that you wouldn't necessarily pick up unless a professor was going to grade you on it, it took me a while to kind of get to that, like, oh, this is what I want to do. And so it was kind of like giving me permission to write the stories that I wanted to write.
Mm.
Um, my Broken Wings duet, which I think most people, that's what most people will know me for, Airy and Haven. Airy actually started life as my graduate thesis. Um, I was very lucky to be in a program where we didn't have to write a like paper, a thesis paper. Some people wrote like a short story collection or a collection of poems or started a novel. I started a novel and I told my thesis chairs from the beginning, I'm going to write a fantasy novel. I'm not going to write some lit fiction thing I don't care
Yeah.
about. Like that's a waste of everyone's time. And thankfully, like none of them had read or written fantasy before, but they were like, yeah, okay, like you're in the program already. We can't kick you out. So we
So
might as well let you
cool.
do this. I'm like,
I fucking love it. That's so cool.
there, and it's really been neat to see more MA and MFA programs gearing towards genre fiction. So, you know, not just romance, but mystery and fantasy and sci-fi, because like that's where the market is. Not books.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
Um,
how many $1 billion a year does like romance bring in its own right? Like,
like how much money do we need to make
yeah,
before we're taken seriously?
to prove that this is what people want. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
I will say, like, even still though, if you are looking to get into an MA or MFA program, like don't submit genre fiction
Yeah.
for your sample. Do that once you're in and they can't
Yeah.
kick you out.
Like get your bum on the seat and like
Fake it till you make it. Like write one really good lit fic short story, and then that's just what you submit and for
yeah.
the end of time.
Yeah. And then be like, oh, by the way, I'm now writing about dragons and like
Yes. Told you. I'm using my powers for evil. Like, uh-oh.
yeah, like who me?
Well, I mean, it's always the quiet ones. And so I think, and that was really fun because Airy kind of came about as I had this sort of amalgam of things I wanted to do. I knew I wanted it to overall be a love story. But it starting in a place of literary fiction really helped me kind of develop it in a sort of literary fiction way. I know that doesn't translate well for some people. I've been accused of it nothing happens, and they are correct. There's a whole chapter where the main female character chops wood. She's having an existential crisis while she's doing it.
Yeah.
She's chopping wood.
Yeah.
And
And
that is all that happens for the entire chapter.
and I hate to say it, but it's like if that was a male character doing that in a chapter, people probably wouldn't have such an issue with it. You know, like, you know, in terms of
Like, well, it would depend. Was he shirtless while he was doing it?
yeah. Yeah, depending who's watching as well. But yeah,
Very
like
true.
it's that thing, right? That it's like, yeah, we can have these scenes or moments that are very internal and don't need to have big like dramatic
Yeah.
moments going on, because that's what allows for the pacing and the space and, you know, because I'm a bit the same with my books, you know, that even though they're paranormal romance, they're dark fantasy, it's very character driven, right? So I'm much more interested in bringing about like what's going on for the characters, what's their inner monologue. Like I'm a very inner monologue person. Like
Love it.
I have a whole damn like thing going on inside here.
There's a couple people going on in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that comes very naturally to me to write as well, you know, more so than I enjoy writing the action-packed moments as well, but that is always going to be the thing that I gravitate to. Like I love knowing the inner workings of someone. So for me, I would like eat that shit up all day long. Like give me 10 chapters of chopping wood and like ruminating on what the fuck you're going to do about a situation.
And that was one of the fun things about literary fiction, is because literary fiction and like the short story, and I think Ari kind of started the first couple chapters, I wrote like singular short stories almost.
Mm.
Um, in literary fiction, the smallest thing can be so life altering. It can be that you realize someone lied to you, and it doesn't have to be a big lie. It could just be like they lied to you casually. It could be that you realize something about yourself, or just something slightly different happened in a day and that threw it completely off. Because literary fiction is very much about day to day life of human experience. And so I brought that to Ari, and I know that a lot of people weren't into it because I know like there's a lot of very big sweeping fantasy romances, and I'm 100% here for it. Um, like obviously people they love Sarah J. Maas. They love what's Fourth Wing
I've
just
never
come
read
out.
anything of hers.
I read enough to know I don't like it. That's
Like,
okay. I'm obviously outvoted, and that's a-okay because there's so much to read. Like
yeah,
I'm okay with it.
yeah. And I
There's a
think
lot of beautiful art.
I think when you're writing in that sort of either genre or like tangential to it as well, like I know for me, I'm very, I won't say cautious about what I choose to read within the genre, but it probably is like sort of, I'm aware of what I don't want to take on board, right? You know, like I'm
Yeah,
aware of what I want to kind of enjoy as a reader, and also
yeah.
then
Yes.
keep my kind of boundary around in terms of like what is mine and what is like somebody else's creative journey,
Oh,
right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So sorry, just to like totally tangent off into
Oh,
that for a
no, no.
moment.
And I think, and it's definitely, it's hard. Like you've got another, not New Zealand, but Aussie, Opal Rain. She's amazing. I know that she's been going through like this, like, heroes with skull heads, like that sort of thing. And like that's a whole like how much is too much. And it is with the monster world, like how much
Mhm.
are like, okay, you wrote a Mothman book. Is it too much like, you know, CM Nacosta's book, or is it too much like this one? Like,
Mm.
so I can definitely see how some people are worried about that. But I think as long as you like, okay, you have a dragon, but like, how can you make it
Yeah, exactly.
interesting in yours? And that's the fun part about it. That's the most fun part, I think, both for the writer and the reader. They like to see like, okay, like we've all read a Cinderella retelling. Like
Yes.
we still eat it up because
Yeah.
it's fun seeing how people do something different with it.
Yeah. And I've been watching kind of this very interesting, you know, at the time that we're recording this, there's been this kind of uh explosion of like hockey romance within like the contemporary
Yes,
genre, right? And
it is
it's
the Stanley
been
Cups.
see, like I have no idea. I'm like,
The big hockey thing is
yeah,
happening right
I'm like, is
now
there
in the northern
something going
hemisphere.
on? There's something
You're
going
playing for all the marbles right now,
on.
so that's
Yay,
why.
sports. Yay, sports. Um,
Yeah. Hey, sports balls score the points.
but you know, it's been interesting to like watch it because it's exactly that, right? Like, you know, we're talking about it in like the fantasy context, but you know, like hockey romances, mafia romances, like we have all of these genres that have so many similar threads, but for people who enjoy them, like, you know, the voracious appetite for like these different stories and how they're told with all the different individual nuances that each author brings is just like, in my opinion, one of the best parts about indie romance, because it is able to move at that pace that traditional publishing was never able to, you know,
No.
to be able to fill that desire for, you know, if you get on a binge of like, I've discovered this genre that I really am enjoying and I want to give me all of the books that are like in this realm, like it's just so good to be able to go down that rabbit hole.
Oh, I agree. And it's I feel like and you get to discover different authors because like I love me a mass market paperback. I know that's a controversial opinion, but I have teeny tiny hands and my mass market paperbacks fit in my teeny tiny hands. Uh, I do. I'm not a short person. I'm actually quite tall, but I have teeny tiny hands. Um, and I love them. I have a whole little couple shelves devoted to them. Like I absolutely adore like Cressley Cole, Jennifer Ashley, Alana Andrews. But with traditional publishing, you had to wait a year for
Mm.
one of them to come out because they only let them publish once a year. And like they were kind of had their niches squared away. Jennifer Ashley was kind of not necessarily the only one doing shifter romance, but like she was one of the big names in it. And so if you wanted a shifter book, you just kind of had to wait for her publisher to release her next one.
Mm,
Um, so it's just kind of awesome to they've been around. Like I feel like they laid so much groundwork.
yeah,
Some of these authors, especially publishing in like the mid 2000s,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
opened the floodgates, and like the reader interest was so high that you do get later authors doing it, and there's enough interest to sustain it. Um, but yeah, because it's just you want to go on a binge and or you want to try other authors. And I think it's just fun because it also allows other authors to have multiple series. Like I
Mm,
think like there are what like 20 something books in the Immortals After Dark series by
oh,
Cressy Cole now, which is
yeah.
impressive as fuck. Like don't get me wrong, and she is the
I'm just
queen.
like
No, yes, we
bow
love
down.
Cressy. We
Yeah,
bow down to
yeah.
Cressy. Oh my goodness, we love her. So impressive. And she has a couple other series too, but being kind of locked in, and I believe she's actually now her own publisher, which like, yes, queen. Like,
Mm,
yes, publish your own stuff. You don't need them. Like
yeah,
you
yeah.
transcended. Um, but you can explore different things. And you can try different things, which is so great. So you don't have to have a publisher or an agent tell you
Mm.
you're worth something. Like you can put it out there, and the readers who like it will find you, and that's so delightful.
Exactly. And speaking of that, like, so for you, you obviously started with that duet, like, and then your most recent one is Stone Hearts,
Yes.
which if we can just like gush over this little gem for a moment,
If you
because
insist.
it is an absolute delight. And
Oh, thank you.
I've been in your DMs like swooning over how sweet this little novella, but also with extended epilogue is.
Yes.
Can you give us a little bit of a how that has kind of come about for you? Because this is a, a pre lead in
It's a prequel story. Yeah, it's
prequel
a
story to what is going to be a series that is going to come.
yes.
So this kind of like whets your appetite for as to be as yet to be kind of confirmed like world whatever is coming. But I am so fucking excited for it. Like it sows so many seeds, and it's like, oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Stonehearts started life with the I Am the Fire anthology that the wonderful Chloe Parker organized last year. And that was all the proceeds raised funds for the National Network of Abortion Funds here in the United States. Because some stuff has been happening over here that is not great with women's health. And we were like, fuck that. So that ran for a couple months, and then I got the rights back early in 2023, and I was just like, I do want to put this out. I had the idea also in grad school. I loved working on Airy, but I also needed fun stuff to work on. So I plotted out a couple different I was reading these really fun PNR, SFR stuff, and I was just like, I want to write an alien like Mars Needs Women story, and I want to write a PNR, and I've always adored gargoyles. Like I absolutely love the Disney show. I actually watched it in college for the first time because I didn't have cable as a kid.
Yeah.
And so that was a perfect time to watch it, because when you watch it as like a young 18, 19, 20-year old, and you're just like you can appreciate Goliath.
You can
Oh,
appreciate.
I don't know what Disney was thinking. Like with that, with
Oh, they knew what they were thinking.
I
They
think
like
they didn't quite
marketing.
realized. They were like, oh, we made a whole generation of people who were attracted to, oh no, oh dear, too late now.
Yeah, we've like opened that can of worms.
Like I know quite a few people who have had feelings for, I don't know if you've ever seen The Lion King 2, Kovu, those green eyes, Scar through his eyebrow, like he's a bad boy. Like, why do I have feelings for an animated cat? What are, and then, oh my God, Tarzan. Like, what were they thinking? This is almost completely nude, ripped man who's sensitive and likes to learn. Like, what were they thinking? Like, absolute
It's
sexual
almost
awakening
like
over here.
It's almost like they realized they fucked up with the Beauty and the Beast, like original thing when they like turned him from being like the beast into human.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, actually, this is not what anybody wants.
I know they tried to make him very handsome and striking, but it was just such a letdown. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think the most disappointing thing for me was his voice changed. Like it went back to like a lower, like a higher register normal man
I
voice,
don't
not
even
that
remember that. I
baritone.
think I was just so like traumatized by the change to like this normal, regular looking human.
Well, then when you get to an adult, you then are like, oh wait, why did I feel that way? Oh wait, there's a whole thing of literature over here. It's fine.
Yeah. I am not alone.
And I know that there's over on Twitter, there's an agent getting right to the coals on Twitter for saying like, oh my God, there's dragon shifter romance. Did anyone know about this? Like everyone's like, yeah, did you not?
Yeah.
I feel bad for anyone who's your client if you're the agent and you obviously don't have your finger on the pulse. Your fingers,
Yeah.
God knows where your finger is, but it's not on the pulse of
Yeah.
what we want.
Let me recommend a Katie Robert like to you.
DA Aiken's been around forever. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, and it's just having these like people want to read it and it's not new. Like there are fantastic,
Mm.
like you can go back to fairy tales.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
both men and women kind of being tempted away from taking a human partner to a supernatural partner.
Mm.
And I know one of my absolute favorite, I actually have this really lovely book of like fairy tales from around the world, and ones that like everyone knows, Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella and blah blah. So like ones that didn't make it into Grimm's fairy tales, and also ones from Africa and China and around the world. And one of my favorite ones, it's not that exotic, it's actually from Scotland, but it's called Janet and Tam Lin. And that featured heavily in Stonehearts.
Mm.
So some of the climactic events in Stonehearts take very much from the events that happen in Janet and Tam Lin. I know I'm triggering everyone in SJM, the SJM fandom, by saying Tamlin, but I can feel everyone going, oh no. I know, calm down. He's different. His name's slightly spelled different. It's fine. It's not
Yeah,
the same
yeah,
one.
yeah. And what I
Um,
love in Stonehearts is that your, let's call it like, say, monstrous gargoyle is actually this beautiful, sweet little Carys who is pink and she's so pretty and she's so just sweet and caring and lovely and oh, she's just like the moment you first meet her on the page, you can just like feel how beautiful she is. But she has got this very tragic kind of life around her in terms of the fact that she is flightless, even though she has wings, because she's kind of considered weak and deformed and too little to be any good to anyone. And yeah, she's just such a sweet character, and then your heart is immediately breaking for her because she's looked down on.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I definitely, I mean, and kind of going along with the fairy tales, like she definitely has like Disney princess vibes to me, which I love.
Yeah.
I poured everything I love about a sweet, shy heroine into her because I feel like I do love a kick-ass, competent
Mm.
female lead. Like
Which was in
like,
your
that
which
is my other one. She is
broken
a
wing.
lady
Yeah.
knight and she kicks ass and takes names.
Yeah.
Um, she has her vulnerabilities because of course she does. Um, but Carys was very different. Carys, our beautiful pink gargoyle, um, and she is very much, I think, despite being monstrous and a gargoyle, like very human to me. Like there's a lot of things about her that registered within me. I think Lena, my lady knight from my duet, she is very different from who I am, and so she was a slightly more difficult to write.
Mm.
So I really had to get in touch with what someone like that, so strong and capable, and someone who actually enjoys working out, like what would they think about life? I know Lane and I do not. We're very different people. I hate chopping wood.
We'll delegate that shit.
Yeah, no. Um, so Carys was just so fun to write in that, and that, and making a shy, sweet character who is vulnerable, but who is also strong in her own way, because you don't have to be this. I think there is sometimes a pitfall of strong female leads. Sometimes these strong female leads are not written by women. And it's a pitfall of being sassy and stubborn makes you strong. No, it just sometimes makes you stupid.
Yeah.
Especially the situation where your behavior is getting everyone in trouble, sort of thing.
Yeah, the questionable decisions that get
Yeah.
there you go. Well,
Yeah, and if there's a reason why you're acting that way, great. That's great
yeah.
character development. And if you like the behavior changes, awesome. You've just written character development. But unfortunately, I think a lot of characters can fall into that pit trap of strong female leads have to be, mouthy, snarky, stubborn, which again, I'm okay with. Like, if it's written well and it has a point to it, like, awesome. Like, that can be a strong woman, but so can a very sweet gargoyle who just wants to be loved.
Yeah,
Like,
and we have that beautifully portrayed in Stonehearts, because she, without giving too much of the story away, she has this kind of galvanizing moment where she more or less has to make the decision that she's going to put herself first, and she needs to escape. And that is the thing that essentially saves her life.
Yeah.
So
100%.
without it being this big kind of almost like dramatic, heroic scene, like, it is just purely that she's had to, probably for the first time, I would imagine, put herself first and do something selfish. And it then
just stand up for herself and say, I'm not taking it anymore.
And it triggers this series of events that actually leads to her being this very heroic, selfless, character, and doing things that, again, no spoilers, but I'm presuming that the sequence of events that then unfold of what she is, shall we say, looking for, is setting up future events to come. Would that be a fair way of kind of describing things?
I think so. And I think my blurb, like, some bad things happen to her people, and because of her decision to put herself first, she avoids it. And she is now in a position, she's the only one now in a position to help them, to do anything about it. Which I think, goes to show you have to put yourself first. You can't help other people if you don't help yourself first. Metaphor. It's so deep.
Yeah. Wrapped up in a sweet little pink gargoyle package.
Yes. I love it. She's just so fun to get artists to commission to draw. Most of the artists I've worked with have been like, I get to draw a pink gargoyle. Yes.
I die.
And
like
an opalescent shiny elf man. Like, yes.
Every time you reveal like a new little glimpse at some art or something, I'm just sitting here like, it's just so beautiful. Yeah.
That's you are looking at my disposable income. It's just character art.
My addiction to
such an addiction. Oh God, it is. Art commissions are such a slippery slope.
Yeah, I've like I know that it's like I'm having this dance with it at the moment, because I'm like, it could be very dangerous very quickly for me, because the Nocturnal Hearts world is like ever growing, a bit like Immortals After Dark. Like every book has got new character pairings and groupings and things, and it's a rapidly expanding cast of characters, and I'm like, as soon as I push go on this is like.
Like, if you need one, you need all of them.
Exactly. So yeah, I definitely feel that the lure is there. I'm just kind of like dancing with it at the moment. But
Well, hey, I mean, sometimes some artists do have a like, spend a certain amount and you get certain percentages off.
yeah,
So
just saying. But I do very much appreciate that the Stonehearts world has got some beautiful art, and beautiful representations of these two characters. So we have to touch on our Fae hottie from
we have to.
we have to Gavriel,
He's
like,
too hot to ignore.
ah, as you say, with like his Fae magical, like just ethereal glow going on.
Like he's so pretty. Like I don't write that he's pretty, but he's so pretty. Like
You
he's just like
you know he's pretty.
if if Henry Cavill as the Witcher, right? What Geralt and Lee Pace as Thranduil in The Hobbit, that is Gavriel. He's got Lee Pace's eyebrows and like hair, and then Geralt sort of like grimy tough guy with a heart of gold. And of course he's broody. He's beating himself up about the Fae are not immortal, but they're very long lived. Especially according to human mortal time. Um, and he has been trapped with his own mistakes for what we would consider millennia. And meets a very interesting pink gargoyle through a well. Which again harkens back to the tale of Janet and Tamlin. They meet through a well. And it really ties into, I had so much fun kind of, tapping my memory of fairy tales and grail quests and fae tales from medieval writing that I read a lot about in college. Because it is very important, like these fairy hills, how you get into these other worlds. And so it was just so fun to go down these Wikipedia rabbit holes. I just had like, there were times I had to be like, no, I have to stop and actually write something.
Yeah, like research time is
Yes,
like...
you've had your fun. It's time to do the thing now, especially when I was writing the initial story, because I was on a deadline, like to meet the anthology. I mean, even there's the initial story, and then there's a second part of epilogues through time, and even one I had to pick a Welsh battle. It didn't matter. It literally didn't matter to anyone but me which Welsh battle it was, but it took me 3 days of research. I was having so much fun. It doesn't matter. Just pick one.
Yeah, it's like literally
no
one will know.
One will call you on it.
No one will know that this has been like nearly a week of researching battles.
I'm having too much fun because that nefarious little blue link, and you're like, oh, but I could learn more.
Yeah. Like,
yeah, I had so much fun. Basing so Gavriel is Fae, and very much based on the Celtics. I'm going to butcher it, but the Tuatha De Danann from Ireland. But I also took a lot of stuff from Welsh and British and Scottish Celtic culture. There's a lot of the Fae Queen, who Gavriel is friends with, Rhiannon. She is a Welsh mythological character. Her twin sister Morgan, very famous Irish character, sort of led to the Morgan Le Fay character in Arthurian legend. The tale of Janet and Tamlin is Scottish, so it was just so much fun to mishmash it all together and pick it. It's just so fun.
And as soon as that started to become really sort of more apparent in the story, like I was honestly just like having these little moments, because I personally just absolutely love whenever we've got that just enough of like things that are grounded in our kind of like real world, kind of mythologies and stories and places and things. Because like my mum's from the UK, and whenever we used to go back and visit my grandma on that side, like we would spend kind of the whole like UK summer there growing up. And so we spent a lot of time going around because she lived up in Buckinghamshire, which is very much like where a lot of the old kind of like original Roman settlements were. And, you know, it's a very ancient kind of settlement landscape. And we did spend a lot of time going around a lot of these sort of ancient sites and castles and Stonehenge, and, you know, like visiting these places that, yeah, there was just so much woven in that I was just like,
Yeah.
"Ooh," like this just is so up my alley of all of these things. And I was lucky enough to go to one of my best friends from high school. She got married in Wales, and
Yeah.
but it was like deep in the heart of Wales. Like I
Ooh,
cannot
better.
I cannot even pronounce the place where we went to.
There's so many letters. There's so many letters in the Welsh language, and they
Yeah.
don't phonetically mean what you think they mean.
Oh, I know. And everything had like multiple L's and F's and W's and Y's. And, you know, it was like the words were, you know, like however long. And yeah, it was just the most magical experience to go and get to be there for kind of like in this tiny little Welsh village in the middle of nowhere. And so reading your book like just evoked so much of that for me. And I just had the best time. And of course, anytime there is mention of festivals like Beltane or Samhain or, you know, like any of these things, I'm just like, my little witchy heart is like, ooh.
I know. I love it. I love a good and like deciding how much, because right, modern druid and
Yeah.
druidity is different from what it was in the
Yeah.
age. So, you know, and that's going to be a fun little thing that is going to get played with in
Yeah.
later books.
Yeah.
How does modern druidity speak to the ancient one that Carys and Gavriel experienced themselves?
Mm.
Since druid magic is what brought Carys's people to life.
Yes.
She has a couple things to say about druidity and its practices, and how we may or may not be getting it right in modern times. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. All right. So, the book definitely, as a prequel story, it sets things up, and then the epilogues, as they take place through time, are meant to get us to where the main story is going to start, which is modern day San Francisco.
Which
Um,
I have to say that I absolutely adored the journey through the
oh,
extended
thank
epilogues,
you.
because I fucking love a good time travel situation going on, or like crossing through different eras, you know, like it's just my little like adoring of anything, you know, like vampire who's been alive for centuries, and, you know,
Exactly. Like,
like,
what's their
and
life been like?
yeah, you know, that they've lived through all these different eras, and they're talking about their life back when, you know, it was whatever, you know, like whatever number of centuries ago. And yeah, so that really just ticked all those boxes for me, of that, seeing these snapshots of different eras and their life through different eras, and seeing them as a couple like modernize essentially, like as everything progressed. And I have to say, like, is it the final one when it's kind of like modern day and they're like FaceTiming each other? And
Yes.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
that just was like,
They're having phone sex. Yeah.
oh, it was just like chef's kiss for me. I'm like, this is so fucking good. Like,
Oh, thank you.
I like the
Thank you.
merging of like historical fantasy characters with modern technology and world, and like how they navigate that. Like, so I'm assuming, as you say, like with the series to come being set in contemporary society, but we've
Yeah.
got these very ancient things coming through. I'm just like, gimme, 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 gimme.
And I love like and I think that's why people really enjoy monster romance and sci-fi romance, is this kind of clash of cultures. And so that's
Mm.
gonna be super fun to play with. What happens when Carys's people, what happens when they start to finally break some curses? Or what
Yeah,
happens? What, you know,
exist in modern day world when, yeah.
what
Again,
happens when you take a 6th century gargoyle and put him in the middle of 2023 San Francisco? Like, he's gonna flip out.
yes, yes.
I love it.
Ah, it's
He's gonna
so
be a caveman, and I'm gonna love it.
it is gonna be so fucking good. I can just like, it's already like, yeah, sign me up. Give me, give me Give me it all.
I'm pretty excited. I've definitely got like, I know what's gonna happen. I sort of ended up writing Stonehearts because I signed up for the anthology, and as someone who I tend to be very long-winded, Airy and Haven are nice, chunky books. Um, Stonehearts is relatively small. It was my first foray into writing a novella. I would say it's still pretty long for a novella, especially with the epilogues tacked on at the end. So
Yeah, because you kind of have like, it's almost like two halves to that book, really, isn't it? The first half is very much set in like the sort of historical fantasy romance
yeah,
world, and then once you hit the epilogues, we fast forward through time with each subsequent like
yeah,
chapter of the epilogue. So I think that's something that I really loved, how it was like this sort of two halves to their story, essentially, that we've got their kind of meet cute and subsequent like kind of how they wrangle like meeting, even though they're divided by different realms and time and things. But then we have the journey through into modern society, and it's just, oh yeah, so good.
I just, it was completely feeding into not only my love of history, but my love of epilogues. Like everyone loves an
Yeah,
epilogue.
yeah.
It's usually when like, oh, did someone like, they have a kid. Not a good kid. I'm all for it. Um,
Yeah, it's just
but I love an epilogue. Like I love multiple epilogues. Like, oh, where they are at they like 2 weeks later and 6 months later and like
mm,
5 years later. Like I just love that shit. Like
yeah,
I honestly, especially I think maybe older stories nowadays don't resonate as much with me because like they get together at the very end and you don't get to see them what they're like
yeah.
as a couple. I love it when that's why I hate third act breakups so much. It's like, no, I want to see them
Mm,
as a couple and like
yeah,
growing as a couple. I love that shit.
yeah, we want the time with them. And like I often say how like my favorite epilogues or bonus chapters or whatever we want to call them, um is like the domestic stuff. Like
Yeah,
those are often my favorites. Like, just seeing
yeah.
them go about their lives and have these very domestic moments together.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, like obviously I get it. If you need to use an epilogue to set up the next book,
Yeah.
power to you. I'm here for it. Do what you need to do. Um, yeah, just I love that. Like, ugh, we just need to go to the grocery store as a couple. And I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
please do. Like, I
Yeah.
want that. That's what I want. I want to go to the grocery store with you. I love it. Because it's just you get to spend more time. Like, it's usually cozier and you get to spend more time, especially like if the characters have been through it. Like, it's just
Yeah.
so nice to get to be happy for a bit. And
Yeah, yeah. Because especially in the like fantasy or romantasy genre, right? Like so much of the characters getting together is has got these things that are very like, dramatic events or things that take place, and they might have some sort of fated connection or bond or whatever that draws them together, but we don't get a lot of time of them actually getting to just be together. Like they're kind of either problem solving or fighting off something or saving each other or something. So
oh
it
yeah,
is,
and then if they're enemies to lovers, like they haven't even gotten
yeah,
like way
yeah,
and they really like each other.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is that beautiful vehicle for being able to actually show the couple in those moments when, as you say, like we actually get to see them, what they're like
Yeah.
is together. And that's what I really found it fascinating how you managed to portray like the longevity of their relationship. Like I think, again, I don't want to give too much away because I want to allow people to enjoy it themselves, but I really felt like you did such a good job of writing in that depth of, what it is like to spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years with
Yeah.
another person, right? Like, yeah. I don't know if that was challenging for you to write or what, but it came across really beautifully.
I definitely thought about like I thought about like friendships I've had for a really long time, and other relationships that I've had just a very long time. And it's not that time apart necessarily weakens anything. And I
Mm,
really thought about if you are these people who are not necessarily immortal, but very long lived,
Yeah.
And like, yeah, you do have like the fated mates bit sort of thrown in. So you do have people that are like hardwired to like each other
Yeah.
for the most part, which is great and kind of gets over some of these hurdles that we mere humans tend to have. But thinking about like what would a relationship like that look like, especially when they do have a sort of, you know, personal mission. They both have this personal mission to help their people. What
Mm,
would that look like? And like, how would you spend your time?
mm,
I think we all definitely like during the pandemic on lockdown had to think about, oh my God, we all picked up new hobbies, right? You have all this free time.
yeah.
It was definitely like, yeah, they both have hobbies, at
Yeah.
the very
And
least.
and I thought it was really great as well how it kind of showed their individuality. Because I think sometimes when we have like these fated mate stories, right, that they kind of become this like homogenous unit, and like
Yeah.
it's hard to sort of know where one's personality ends and the other one begins, because they just kind of become this amoebic thing like together. Whereas these two have their like distinct, Gavriel is like, talks about himself how he's like this wandering, exploring soul, like wants to go on adventures, whereas Carys is very like homebody. I want to be at home. I want a million dogs. Like just give me
Yeah.
my like bit
Living
of
the dream.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I just
I want a garden
that
and have
like
dogs. Like, why is that?
yeah,
Okay.
that just really, I was like, that's basically my relationship. Like, that I'm the one who's at home with the 3 dogs writing my books and like, like, yeah, I am
And
embarrassed about that
oh
relationship.
yeah, 100%. Like I see myself in Karis very much. I am a homebody. Like I completely understand how she's just like, yeah, I have this great house, got all my stuff in it. Why would I want to leave? All
Yeah,
my stuff is pretty cool. Like
yeah, like
I like
you
the
you
stuff.
go do what you want to do. Like I'll see you for
Yeah,
dinner, kind of thing.
pretty much. Especially since we can teleport, essentially.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
just,
yeah,
just be home for dinner. I don't care. Go
yeah,
do you.
exactly.
Have
Yeah, you
fun,
go
babe.
go fight a battle. Like I'll see you later. Like what time?
Go do
What
man
time
stuff.
shall dinner
Yeah.
ready for you?
Wash your boots when it's dinner time. Yep.
So good. So we have to, of course, turn our attention to another little fun project of yours that is about to come to life, which as we were talking before we started recording for this, that this is not part of the Stonehearts world, but it is the next book that is coming out for for your beautiful lovers of fantasy romance, monster romance, like deliciousness,
Yes.
called Halfling, which I'm like already squealing about the name.
I'm in my one word Disney era of titles.
And
Like
we are here.
Stonehearts that mold a little bit, but yeah, Airy Haven Halfling.
We are so here for it. So, what could you share for us in a very quick nutshell about what to expect and anticipate with Halfling? Because I just know this is going to be the most delicious little ride.
I hope so. I'm definitely like knee deep into it writing and I'm having so much fun. So Halfling has definitely been percolating in my brain for like 2 years now. It is an orc romance, high fantasy, so not like Stonehearts, not set in our world. It's off in another world, much like Aerie and Haven are. Um, in a world where there's lots of different magical creatures, but they're not really, they're sort of on the periphery. They're not human, they and humans don't mix. Um, and Halfling is the tale of a half orc who stumbles upon a human captive, a woman who's been kidnapped and sold to his orc clan, much as his mother was. And him having, extreme PTSD from what his mother went through was like, oh crap, I can't let this happen to
Yeah.
someone else. And so he steals her. And then it's a fantasy road trip falling in love because I eat that shit up.
He
And
steals her.
he's
It's
just a
just like,
big
take my
cinnamon roll.
money.
I know. It's just, and honestly, this whole story, it's a lot. I would say it's smaller in scale than Aryan Haven. Aryan Haven are very much about like world politics and these bigger themes going on, which again, love to write. They're so fun, but sometimes it's just fun to also write something smaller, smuttier, uh, just with more fluff. It's just pure fluff. And I told myself when I came up with this idea, I kind of plotted it out in my notebook. Um, I had just started writing Haven at the time, and so Halfling has been the carrot I've been dangling in front of myself. Um, like, okay, you can write this only after you write Haven, because I made people wait so long for Haven. It was so bad. I had to write Haven in 2022.
Yeah.
I did not let myself work on anything else. I did not let myself get distracted. Because I knew if I could distract myself, I would distract. So now that I got that, I had Stone Hearts ready to go. So I was like, let's just put this out there. Why not? Let's build that backlist. Um, so Halfling is unattached. It's been so fun to write so far, and I think people will enjoy it. It's just going to be a fun little Orctober release. I'm hoping early October to release it. I'm just having a lot of fun. It's lower stakes. It's again, it's just pure fluff, and
Yeah.
I have high hopes for it.
Like he steals her fantasy romance road trip vibes,
Yep.
like just
Raccoon
mm.
sidekick. Like I'm just
Oh,
putting everything I love in. I know. Like I need to give him a baby animal to make him even more hot. Like
what are you
it's
doing?
ridiculous. Like I'm writing the initial chapters, and I'm just like, girlfriend, why are you not jumping on him? Or I know it's chapter 3, but come on, he's a
Yeah,
babe with the raccoon. Like,
yeah. And
he
and
hates me. He's
okay,
giving up his bed. Like, what are
yeah.
you doing? Why? Like,
Like,
jump in on
okay,
him.
he stole you, but like trust me, it's like for good reasons. Like,
Like, what are the hangups here? I don't get it.
yeah. Oh, it's going to be so so good.
I
Is
hope so.
it we can of course link up in the show notes for where people can find the way towards this beautiful tale, and of course all your other books that are available. Uh, it has just been absolutely amazing to have you come and chat, and I could keep you here all day talking about this topic, as we both have already kind of laughed about prior to recording this. But like, yeah, this is going to be,
This is our jam.
yeah, this is both of us just like getting to go wild with like a topic that we love and can happily talk about all day.
Community is the best. I love it.
It is, it is. So let all of our beautiful listeners and those who are watching along on YouTube know, where can they find you? Where can they connect with you? Where can they get amongst the worlds that you have created?
Yeah, so I have a website where I have signed copies, merch, so all those beautiful prints, stickers, bookmarks, all that good stuff. I ship international. Um, like if the UPS ships it, I will ship it.
Yeah.
I have my website is sewendelauthor.com. Lots of good stuff, and you can find all the info about my books there too, trigger warnings, all that good stuff. My books are sold on Amazon right now. I believe you can get them through Ingram Spark now. I signed up for it, but mostly through Amazon. I know we have been having some trouble with the Airy paperbacks in Australia and the UK, which is super fun. But I'm getting it resolved. But otherwise, it's all on Amazon. And I'm also on Instagram, S.E Wendel author. That's pretty much me. And on Twitter, I'm pretty much everywhere as S.E Wendel author.
I love it. So make sure to go and join in the beautiful fantasy romance, romantasy, delicious world. I'm so excited for what is to come with not only the Stonehearts Underhill series to come, Halfling. Amazing, amazing, amazing
Good.
things on the horizon. Just again, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your beautiful magic and your words and your worlds and your characters. We love you. And this is, of course, going to have to be a repeat in the future for
Oh, 100%.
Orctober. Like, let's book it in.
Let's do it.
Let's book
Do
it
it. Yes, thank you
in.
so much for having me, and congratulations on your newest release. It's so exciting.
Thank you. It has been just so much fun to, as you know, once you get all these
Nothing
characters
better than
out
it.
into the
Yeah.
world, like they live for so long inside you that it's nice that moment when they're finally out and you can share them with everyone is just, the best feeling. So it is a lot of fun. So thank you so much for coming and joining us, and thank you for tuning in. For everyone who's watching along, remember to like, to follow, all the things. Come and let us know if you've loved this episode in the DMs. We are so here for it, and we'll be seeing you very shortly on the next episode.
Thank
Bye.
you, everybody.